Tyler, we're here to talk about a camera that you've had hands-on with, and a really interesting one at that, the Canon R6 V.
Yeah, this is coming out a little later than the primary reviews, like first releases were there, and I got the camera just as those first reviews were coming out, so we're going to spend a little more time with it. I've spent more time with it. I'm going to go kind of in depth, like what's it really like to use this for a while. Hopefully you've already seen some of the specs, some of the preliminary tests of this thing, but I've been using it on a bunch of travel shoots, been bringing it with me everywhere. And let's, dig into really, I think, who this is for. Why does this exist? Why did Canon choose to make this camera? Is like, it's not usually a question I ask of Canon, but I do think it's a little bit confusing in the lineup. So, I mean, first of all, what were your first thoughts when you saw the R6 V announced?
Yeah, as a previous Canon shooter and a fan of the C80, the C50 kind of filled that gap of like the video version of the R6 Mark III, which the R6 V also kind of is. And so adding the R6 V to the lineup when you have a very dedicated, good hybrid R6 Mark III option and a video-centric C50 option, it just did seem a little confusing. But this is adding things like IBIS, and obviously it's a cheaper price point as well. We can get into all these things. So it's a worthy camera in the lineup. I was at an event where I met some Canon reps, and I actually found that those guys also who work at Canon were surprised by this camera announcement. They weren't told about it, especially the video-centric reps that I met. I thought that was interesting as well, that even people from Canon weren't aware that this was coming out, and it was a bit of a surprise because it's significantly cheaper than the C50 and has a lot of the features of the C50 in it.
Yeah, it kind of would have made sense as if just this existed and not the C50, that would kind of make more sense to me. Like now the C50 seems like a bit of an odd duck. Maybe the biggest thing, like the reason that I would really primarily consider this for my use cases is like IBIS is just huge. Like if I just have the choice of two cameras that are not that different, but one's got IBIS, like that's enough to bring me towards the R6 V. And the fact that R6 V and R6 III rhyme doesn't help either. So, there's all sorts of confusion here. And I think a lot of it is also weighing the price points, which we won't really go into depth on. But I mean, the 6V is the most affordable of them and ends up kind of being my favorite. So you really can't stack these in terms of like the more expensive one is the best. You really do have to look at the specific set of features and decide which one makes sense for you. And before we go in depth on my experiences and stuff, I do like the overall impression I had was that I really like a lot of things that this camera did. And I think there's a lot of people that will buy it and be happy using it. Like there's a lot good to be said about it, but I would not choose it. Like this would not be my camera. And mostly I want to say all the favorable stuff first, and then I'll get into my bigger complaints towards the end. But let's start off with the good stuff.
I mean, you and I both were big C70 fans and shot on it for a long time. I believe you also...
I still am. I mean, yeah, it's still my A camera at the studio. So
it's such a great camera, and the DGO sensor is amazing. And I am a big fan of Canon's cinema menu layout and everything. It's really well organized, and they've got a good system. The C50 is more in line with that type of setup, but the C50 did leave a lot to be desired, in my opinion, and I would still rather go with the C70 or C80 over the C50 personally, if you're going to go that direction. So yeah, just kind of interesting things that they left out of certain cameras and features they added here and there. With that being said, Canon for years struggled to give us C-Log 2 and a lot of video features that are present in this R6 V here. So tell me, Tyler, what are some of the things that you do like about it?
So yeah, that's part of why I started walking away from Canon. And this is a little bit of old news by now. They've caught up on some of this in the last few cameras. But the fact that C-Log 2 was not available in the Canon R5, that's one I shot a lot of. And just many of the other like hybrid cameras would just have C-Log 1 and C-Log 3. And again, confusion in the numbering here because 3 is worse than 2. C-Log 2 is what you want. Like most of the other brands don't have anything comparable to C-Log 3 that's like, it is log, but it doesn't look great. It doesn't give you the full flexibility. It's not a true log format. So now here with the R6V, we do have like full C-Log2 support. And that's been in a few others, right? So the R5 Mark II also had it available. So did the R6 III. Like it's kind of been around now, but it is necessary to me. Like I think if you don't have that in a hybrid camera, it's not really a proper hybrid camera, because it's just standard to have that in others, like S-Log3 being available in the Sonys, V-Log being available in Lumix, F-Log2 in Fuji's. Like all of these can kind of be swapped, right? Like the log profile isn't holding you back at all. The days where Canon's color science was like notably ahead, I think are long gone. You can really grade all these cameras to look the same. Obviously, some of the, like you're shooting in Rec 709, right? You have full contrast and you don't want to color grade it later. Then you will end up getting some different results from some of these cameras. But as far as like professional workflows go, when you're shooting log or you're even applying a LUT in real time or something like that, you're going to have basically the same results out of all of these now. So yeah, again, C-Log2, super important. This like makes it modern in a way that Canon kind of already arrived here a little while ago. Then there's other just like creator specific stuff that I think is very smart of them to be looking out for. You know, a big thing is putting the, what do you call it, Cord 20 jack on the side here so that you're able to put a tripod mount on the bottom, mount this vertically, just capture your vertical content directly. And along with that, being able to have 7K open gate so that you can now, well, you know, record in slightly more of a square format. I think open gate's become a pretty like controversial feature in some ways, because of, if anybody didn't follow everybody arguing about it, it's that Sony hasn't been including it. And there's an argument of like, well, is it that important? Like how many points should we dock Sony for not including it? My feeling on it is that it should just kind of be here. Like it's not that it's the most widely used feature, but it is useful. Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem that hard to implement. Obviously, I don't know anything about camera engineering, so like I'm sure there's like processor requirements I don't have to think about. But we're getting it on everything. Every brand is doing open gate now, and Sony not doing it stands out. Whether we all use it a lot or not, it should be available. So, do you end up using open gate a lot?
I use it all the time, especially on the Lumix cameras, and I think the way they've implemented it is like a lot of the Sony people who argue about this have never really used it on the Lumix systems. And the thing that I love about it on Lumix is the MP4 Lite version, which I do wish they gave us more frame rates on, but it is the most compact 10-bit file that I shoot on. It's like a 3.5K open gate H.265 10-bit file, and it looks great. Like I've never ever had anybody say that the footage looks bad. It is still 10-bit, but it's very compressed, really easy to work with. But because it's open gate and you're kind of intentionally shooting for social media purposes with this particular codec, it's so easy and flexible to work with to do both vertical and horizontal shooting.
But just speaking of the codecs as well, something I've found I don't love about how Canon has done it for a long time now is the way that they divide up the fine and not fine codecs. I find quite confusing because like basically it's, you know, the difference between oversampling and not, and it ends up being sharper, but the same resolution. So if you're just like shooting normal 4K footage, you'll have these weird trade-offs of like, do I want the sharpest image in fine, but then I might have different record limits, which you don't really anymore on the R6 V. That's not really a problem anymore. But then I'm almost like, well, why do we still have a division between 4K and 4K fine? Like, don't I always just want it to be the sharpest possible? I don't know. I don't like having to like explore and test the differences between those and making choices on the go. I'm like, do I want this to look the absolute best, or do I want to have second thoughts about overheating? Like, I just want 4K. I want the best 4K. Like, you know, just give it to me. This camera's fixing a lot of that because, you know, what we haven't touched on yet is it does have the internal fan system of a proper video camera. So the record times are amazing. Like this was more of an issue on previous R6s. I think some of it is still there on the R6 III as well because it just doesn't have as big of a fan to cool itself down. But this really can keep cool in a way that even when we're traveling in France, if you didn't see the news lately, it was the hottest summer recorded history in France this year. So it was like 40 degrees Celsius, which is like 100 and whatever. It's too hot. And it didn't overheat once. Like I wasn't doing the timers and stuff, but I recorded a roll of just talking for YouTube videos, just talking a long time, and it was fun.
I mean, some of the things that I like about it when I had hands-on at the event that I was at is the body shape. I do like it. I like the photo switch. It's pretty quick to start up and switch between modes. And I personally do like the fact that they kept the menus pretty simple. Obviously, like I said earlier, the cinema menus are nice, but having everything kind of be the same just makes sense for a lot of people who aren't as experienced. So this really is a great all-around hybrid, right?
Yeah, the menus are way easier to figure out than on the C series when you have different menus between the photo and video just are structured differently. Like if anybody hasn't experienced that, the cinema line has always had a totally different menu system. So when you get those, like the R5C was like this as well. Some of these hybrids will just have both systems that look totally different and react differently and behave differently, and you have to get used to it as you switch back and forth. But on the R6 V, as you switch back and forth between photo and video, it is the same set of menus, so you don't have to like relearn something completely different. They look the same, behave the same. Maybe some different options are presented. I didn't check that, but you don't have to relearn two menu systems just to work with one camera. So that's like a nice step forward. But you know, I'm really curious who is looking at this camera in the end. Like, is it going to primarily be people that are like moving from a more photocentric hybrid workflow? So that maybe they had an R6 II or an R6 or something, and now they're like realizing they want to get more into the video world? Or is this really going to attract like serious video shooters? Because there's some features on here that are like, no, this is like for real video. And I think maybe the best example is the rocker switch. Like the fact that the front of the camera, like very primary real estate, now controls the zoom or various other feet. You can reassign it, but it's meant to control the direct zoom on new lenses like the 20 to 50 millimeter that we'll talk about later, so that like at any time your pointer finger can be zooming in as you're shooting. That's a big departure. Like even, you know, the C50 didn't have that. It's not that common these days, but it indicates what this camera is all about, which is like, this is like such a video first camera, even though they named it in their hybrid photo series. Again, this is all the confusion of this, right? Of like, hopefully we're straightening it out and not making it more confusing.
In my little YouTuber world where I work primarily now, I have been working with a lot of creators kind of in the kind of higher end of things, you know, the Logan Pauls, the Mr. Beasts, and people in that category. And the shooters that they have are very competent shooters. Often they're hiring freelance videographers who have some experience, but also sometimes not. Sometimes it's just people who come directly from shooting on a phone, and they have a real understanding of how to shoot for YouTube, but not a deep wealth of knowledge on pro video features. But they're doing things at a high level that requires, you know, pro settings. You know, Mr. Beast, when I was fortunate enough to go to North Carolina and see behind the scenes on the Mr. Beast team and talk to their camera guys and see some of their setups. And they shoot on at the time, this was over a year ago now that I went, they were shooting on the Canon R5C, and they were shooting everything in log. They have a color grading workflow with their footage, and I could see this camera being almost designed for Mr. Beast. Like his team is comprised of some people who are kind of the higher level shooters who are maybe directing a fleet of other shooters, and the other shooters are maybe less experienced, but they want all the cameras to match. They want them all to be the same cameras. The head DP, you know, is the one getting into the settings and changing the settings. So you want to have the ability to get into the 7K open gate, Canon log to, you know, 10-bit, whatever settings, but then having simplistic menus for that, like, for lack of a better term, you know, lower level camera operator to be able to pick it up and use it, but they don't have to dig into the menus. So I don't know. I know this is like such a random use case, but like Canon has clearly been working directly with the Mr. Beast team, and for Beast games and for these huge shows, they're spending literally $100 million on, I think, Beast games, you know, with Amazon, and they have like 70 of these cameras on a shoot. And so you need things like time code. You need things like that the C50 offers that the R6 V doesn't offer. So it's interesting. There's like so many different types of creators these days. It's not so like filmmaker, photographer, YouTuber, high-end YouTuber, low-end YouTuber. There's just so many different things, again, which is why we started Full Stack Creator in the first place.
Well, and speaking of those other features, the photo mode on this, it's functional. It's got 32.5 megapixels, which is plenty of megapixels. Great sensor. No mechanical shutter, right? Like that's a choice they made. It affects the body shape. Really kind of changes exactly what this camera is, and it really just turns it into like this can be a backup photo camera. That's how I was treating it while I was carrying it around. And I didn't end up taking that many. I just took some test photos. I thought of it as like, oh, I'll have this other lens on here. If I want to switch lenses, I'll just grab it. And in the end, I was like, I didn't. There's something that kind of made me lean away from it. But it can handle it, usually they favor things the other way. Like the R6 III, for example, I mean, it's obviously such a photo first camera, just physically the design of it and things like that. But maybe that's a good time, comparing it to the R6 III is a good time to bring up like what would make me not choose this? This would be the better camera for a team of shooters. Like this is the Beast Games camera for sure. Because it, like you say, it's just like really easy to hand off to people. It's video first, the rocker switch, built-in IBIS, all that stuff is awesome. But
it's small, lightweight.
Totally. It's great. I would not choose to give up the EVF at all. Like there's just no way. Like and using this, it's not just theoretical. As soon as I was shooting with it, I was outdoors and I'm like holding it up to my face. I'm like, I just need to check things. I need to see this without all of the interference of outside light. I need to see it bigger. I need an EVF. And this is why I didn't want to start off too negative, because I know how successful the Sony FX3 has been. And I'm amazed we actually took this long in the episode to bring up the FX3, because that's clearly the whole point of this camera. That is why this exists. Sony just like ran away with a lot of the video market with the FX3. It's just such a smash hit for them. And this is modeled after it in many ways. I have never understood why people would choose the FX3 over other Sonys. Like A7S III, for example. I mean, there's many great Sonys, and I'm like, I want an EVF. Like, I want to be able to see what I'm shooting. It would drive me crazy to only have a flip screen. And then the other frustration, again, coming from the Lumix world, is it is a traditional flip screen, meaning that like it's only coming out sideways and then you can rotate it and then bring it back into the body. So I don't know how many axes that is, but it's not as many as the modern Sonys or the modern Lumixes, where importantly, if you're shooting video, I want to be able to tilt it backwards so that when my eyes are in line with the lens, like I'm holding the camera directly in front of me, the screen should be able to tilt up and I can like just look down. And when I have to look off to the side, it really does change your perspective. Now the lens is at a different angle than your eyes. I know that sounds like a small thing, but it's like, okay, well, if I don't even have an EVF, I'd like to at least be able to shoot horizontal video in the way that so many other brands are letting me now. So it did feel disappointing not having that.
I agree. It sounds like a small thing, but when I was shooting on the S5 II from Lumix, which has a traditional flip screen like that one there, I remember doing like a 3-hour shoot one day. And because I was holding the camera and my head was like off center looking at the screen for like 3 or 4 hours, like I ended up having like some neck pain. So I was like, man, I'm like looking off slightly. Again, a very tiny little complaint, and it can certainly be solved with like a top mounted HDMI monitor, but then now it gets heavy and clunky and whatever.
But this is one of those, like, if you haven't experienced the other kind, I don't think you'll miss it. If you don't have the fully articulating screen yet, if you've just been using Canons the whole time, you're in the Canon ecosystem, this will feel great and you won't really know you're missing anything. And same with all the people that I see walking around with gimbals and an FX3 on it. It's working for them. They don't seem frustrated by it. But once I've been using the other system, I'm like, no, this is how this is how all the flip screens should work. Like I want them to articulate in every single direction. So,
I don't want to say this in a demeaning way, or I hope nobody takes any offense to this, but I do think a lot of the FX3 purchases are more around the perception and the way it looks and the kind of quote unquote professionalism of it. I can't tell you, I've literally had probably 3 or 4 friends who own A7S3s who are YouTubers who don't know what these pro features are say, man, I need to upgrade to the FX3. Do you recommend this or that? I'm like, hold on. You own an A7S3 already? Yes. Why do you want an FX3? I just want a better video camera. I'm like, you know that it's the exact same, right? In fact, you're actually losing some features. In one case, I had a friend who is a moto vlogger, and he is often out in the elements, lots of dust and rain. And I was like, you don't want the FX3 because you're going out into environments where you're getting a lot of weather, and that camera is less weather sealed than the A7S3. Plus you lose the EVF and all this and that. But it's just so weird how it's received this kind of high tier, oh, you know what? I'm upgrading to the FX3 because I'm a professional. And you show up to a set with the FX3 in a big rig. People rig it out all the time with matte boxes and stuff. It looks good. So, and you do have those mounting points, which are nice. But it's interesting how you kind of know if somebody isn't really somebody that you can jive with when you're like, oh yeah, you got FX3, and then they're like, yeah, it's the best camera on the market. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it is good, but
well, I'm going to call this the creator effect, referring to the movie The Creator, which was shot on the FX3. And I think every Sony shooter heard about that. That was huge. That got so much press. People talked about it a lot. And the reasons that they chose that camera, because it's a great camera. I can't speak down to the FX3. I did post a tweet a little while ago about the FX3 is the most overrated camera, which got a lot of heat. But by that, I just meant people overrate it. It is excellent. It is an A tier, maybe an S tier camera, but people think that, like you're saying, they think it's better than the A7S3 when it's different. And I think the reason that the movie, The Creator, chose this camera is it's more physically robust. It has those attachment points. It is designed much more for a traditional production workflow, where you have a team and you are going to be maybe adapting some interesting lenses to it. You can scale it up more, right? It's a compact camera that can be built out.
It's got shutter angle and anamorphic shooting mode. Some of those things that in the film world, they're more accustomed to that language.
Yeah, and you wouldn't need an EVF on those. I mean, if you're gonna attach your external monitors, everything else is just gonna get attached to it. So none of that matters. That's what it's designed for, and that's why it ends up being perceived as more professional. So now we've got Canon kind of using that same design language. So I think people are gonna love that. And liking the vibes of your camera is super important. I don't dismiss that at all. I want to.
Oh yeah, we're vibe people.
Yeah, it attracts me to the FX3 more than the A7S3, and for that reason, if I was to be photographed holding a camera, it's I think I'd look cooler holding the FX3. It looks very nice, and similar with this, I just think it is very symmetric, and I don't like the bump,
I would say the R50 is more of an FX3, right? Because that one has more of the video features. It's got a more robust body. So that's the confusing part of the lineup.
Maybe a lot of this are my C50 takes that I'm just coming to late because I didn't review the C50. So
now there is something that came with the R6 V that I really like. Objectively, we can all agree, and that is the new 20-50 f4 IS PZ lens. Do you have that?
Yes, that is what is mounted on here. It's the only lens that I used for all of this testing. I mean, I have a lot of Canon lenses of my own, but once I put this on, I was like, this is kind of it. This is a very versatile lens. when I was traveling, I had this, and I brought the 35 1.8 so that I could get some shallow depth of field if I wanted it. And I didn't end up using it. I was using this pretty much the whole time.
Yeah, for video, f4 is great. That's fine. 2.8 would be better, but it would make the lens larger.
Absolutely. I appreciated that it was also a 67 millimeter thread too. So all of the Lumix lenses are 67. So that meant that like I could use the same adapters with all of them. And like, that's such an underrated thing. Again, something I feel like Lumix was a little ahead on. It's like when you don't need to buy different ND filters for your lenses, when you don't need to be stepping up and stepping down and the same thing fits on everything.
Definitely.
It's a huge deal in your day-to-day, like in your experience of the day, not having to pocket different lens accessories, like very helpful. So I really appreciate that they did this with the 20 to 50. The range, amazing. 20 millimeters is so much more functional than 24 in many ways, especially if you're using things like the enhanced image stabilization on this. Like we said, it's got built-in IBIS, which is great. So the physical sensor is stabilizing, but it also has digital on top of that works very well. Canon's been good at this for a while. And so if you zoom out to 20, then you apply that extra crop from the stabilization, you end up somewhere like 24, so you're in a more normal zone.
Do you feel that is their IBIS less wobbly now? It used to be pretty wobbly.
Yeah, they've definitely improved on it.
We're
I'm
Lumix
hesitating.
shooters,
I don't want to say
and
that.
Lumix is
Lumix,
best in class.
Yeah. Again, it's like it's kind of what Lumix is known for. Yeah, it's their shtick. So it's not quite Lumix, but it is very good. It's not replacing a gimbal, but it is replacing a tripod in many cases. Like if you just you need to shoot something standing still and you zoom in all the way, then it's probably going to be stable enough. And that's great. That's a lot of what matters and is kind of table stakes now. And all the brands have kind of got there.
I guess the question really is, if somebody approaches you and says, hey, I'm ready to upgrade from, a base level camera or even an iPhone, I'm willing to spend, $3,000 to $4,000 on a kit, maybe even a little less, but because this body is 2,500, that's kind of where I'm sitting at, let's say sub 3,000. Would you recommend this camera to somebody, and who's it for? Who's this camera for, in your opinion?
I mean, the easiest recommendation is for people that are already into the Canon ecosystem. If you like Canon, which I do, and I spent so much time with it, like this, and the features check off everything you need. Absolutely. I think it's great for studio type setups. Like if I was to have a multicam podcast situation, this might be my first choice for it. Like I really like it for that. I would point more people towards the R6 III. I think it's much more versatile, having the EVF. Obviously, most of the features are the same in there, mechanical sensor or mechanical shutter. So it's also more of a full photo camera. The price difference isn't that substantial, and I just think it's worth it for the R6 III. I do think that is more useful to more people. But if you you need this, if this is right for you, then I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't dissuade anybody from picking it up if they're like, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? You will probably be happy then. There's other details that we didn't even touch on, like the front record button is nice to be added. Full size tally light, which like those are usually in the C series from Canon. They only those are more video first features, and seeing them come over here, it's like, that's all really great. And again, studio setups, like that's what it's killer for, like indoors, on a tripod, controlled environments.
I hear you on that, but I just looked it up on eBay, and the going rate for used C70s is $2,500. So for a podcast plugged into the wall on a tripod, and having the XLR support, having the built-in NDs, I personally would rather have 3 C70s than 3 R6 Vs for a podcast.
Maybe I would too, but let's keep in mind, okay, I'll play devil's advocate on this, that the C70 is cropped, it's an APS-C sensor. I keep an adapter on all the time, so I just treat it like full frame and have EF glass on it.
We've got the Sigma 17 to 35 1.8 RF now, so.
But then the other thing is that it is actually just not, this has always been my complaint. The C70 is not that sharp. Like the sensor is like a little soft, which is so strange. Like I usually don't find, like if it's true 4K, then, 4K is sharp. It's like, it just should look amazing. And it's like, when I just put the footage next to any of my other camera bodies, it's not as sharp. And that's odd to me. Like, that's strange. So I'll put that out there, that I do think the actual video files will look better out of the R6. Yeah. Out of the R6 V than the C70. Yeah.
It's also way smaller. You got full frame, IBIS, all that stuff. So it's really no comparison. I'm just saying, in the case that you offered, I personally still think I would go 3 C70s for like continuous shooting on a tripod in a studio environment, that like you just have them all plugged in. They just sit on tripods. They never leave the studio. They're great studio cameras. But
yes, they are. I mean, Canon has a lot of great cameras. Except also C70 has that issue with the breaking tilt screen. Mine is still wobbly, and I have not sent it in for repair, and it drives me crazy. And I don't know how that
is fixable. You and I got the first batch of those, and they were trash. I was talking to a Canon rep about that as well, and he said, yeah, that was a huge mistake. Like, we fixed that pretty quickly, and still they hold true to that. If you have a floppy flip screen, just send it in, they'll fix it. But it's kind of annoying to like send things in. But yeah, R6 V, I think, like, for me personally, as somebody who started on Canon, the original 7D to the 5D Mark III to, the original EOS R to Canon C70 shooter, C100 shooter, C300 shooter. This camera is excellent. And if you were to talk to me years ago, like, hey, do you want this camera? It'd be like, oh my gosh, it'd be like such a mind-blowing thing. But we don't live in a vacuum, and we don't live in 2014 anymore.
I do want to present that, like, the power of staying in your ecosystem is really strong too. Like, it's very hard to switch when you've been somewhere for a long time. So, which I know you understand, but just like there is this, like, comparing outside of your own brand can be really hard, because this is the same as the iPhone versus Android debate often, where, I'm reviewing some new iPhone feature, and a lot of the comments are like, oh, well, Android's had this for years. I'm like, okay, but I was never going to switch to Android. This matters because I'm an iPhone shooter. So same with Canon. It's like, look, now it's on a Canon, and I'm going to keep shooting Canon. So.
But with that in mind, then your argument is, just like an A7S III to an FX3 doesn't always make a ton of sense, in that same kind of argument, you would rather go with an R6 III.
Yes. Yeah. Similar to the Sonys. Yeah. I think most people would be better served by the.
And you're only paying $200 more, right? And it's only $200 or $300 more. So.
Yeah, totally. Well, there's other things, like, we didn't really do the FX3 comparison, but like, this blows away the FX3 to me in terms of specs, like the more resolution that it has, as well as OpenGate, internal RAW, which we didn't touch on, but I don't think is that important. I think most people don't need to touch RAW, but like, it's similar to OpenGate. It's like, it's just becoming quite common on these like kind of middle high end cameras. It should be there. Wait, what else against the FX3? What am I missing? Photo resolution. The FX3 just, like, it does not really work as a stills camera. Like, if you're on a commercial shoot and you're like, oh, now I need to quickly grab some stills, they're pretty compromised on an FX3. Like, that's not, you shouldn't be doing that.
I always say it's the perfect thumbnail camera.
Sure, right. Yeah, exactly. And that's all that you can really do with it. Whereas this really can be, you could use this on a commercial shoot in a pinch and have no issue with the image quality.
It's exciting. I think it's a great offering. Again, just like the Canon reps had said to me, it is sort of confusing, but Steve Jobs famously said, if we're going to cannibalize ourselves, I would rather do that than another company do it. So I think that's probably Canon's idea here, is like, look, yes, there's some parity between other cameras that we offer, but this is a unique camera in the lineup, and we're going to offer it as a solution. We'd rather cannibalize ourselves than Sony do it, which is what's been happening for the last couple of years. Also, we're right on the heels of potentially an FX5 announcement, and I'm very excited and interested in seeing that. That's going to be the kind of next level camera from Sony, new sensor and everything.
This won't really age that well once, like, we're comparing it to such an old camera from Sony. Like, yeah, it beats the FX3 from 5 years ago. I mean, I'm not, so it's not, I don't know. At some point we need a new gold standard.
Yeah. So stay tuned for Full Stack Creator. I'm sure we'll chat about that when it comes out.
If you want more of this, check us out on all the social platforms at Full Stack Creator Show. And if you want to learn how to make thumbnails that get clicks, check out David's thumbnailacademy.com. Or if you want beautiful LUTs and Lightroom presets for your photos and videos, head to stallman.com/shop.